Let's get started today. Hi, my name is Andy Boyan. I work for Chainlink Labs, and today we're talking about RSK. We have Gabriel Kurman here to talk about RSK and their solution. It's fantastic to have you here and meet you too. Like I'm been interested in RSK for a long time. I heard you speak at SmartCon about this at some length as well. Just a fascinating solution. So it'll be great to hear an update. Why don't you introduce yourself, give us a little background on you and what you're building and what you guys have coming up.
Absolutely. So my personal background is in economics. I'm an economist. I've been working all my professional life in private equity and banking. And in 2013, I went to La BitConf, this amazing conference that we have in Latin America, and I met Bitcoin for the first time. It blew my mind. And since then, I've been working on several non-for-profit and for-profit projects. And of course, our the most important one of them. So yes, it's been a long journey. I started 8 years ago, and it's just amazing how fast everything is moving. You know, things that we thought that were going to happen in 10 or 15 years with the pandemic and with COVID, everything seems to be accelerating very fast.
Yeah, the rise of NFTs in the last couple of weeks, especially the auction news today, just mind-blowing of what's going on in the space in general. Why don't you give us a snippet about what is RSK? What do you guys do? What kind of makes you unique in the space?
Absolutely. So to understand RSK, you need to understand why it was born in Latin America. No, so Argentina has one of the largest Bitcoin communities in the world. And the reason for that is because we've had so many problems in our financial system for the last 50 years. So we had every decade a default, a massive devaluation, hyperinflations, banks taking our savings from us. So when Bitcoin appeared, it was very easy to understand for Argentines that we never trusted our local fiat currency, that a decentralized, neutral store of value could play a key role to protect ourselves from our banks, our governments. But in this vision of trying to build a financial system that was open and accessible to everyone, in 2015, when we saw the launch of Ethereum, we were kind of not happy that Ethereum was not happening on top of Bitcoin and was not leveraging on the security and immutability that Bitcoin had. So we had a conversation with Nick Szabo, with Dieguito, and Sergio Lerner, also one of the co-founders of RSK, and Adrian and Ruben. We got together because we didn't want to choose between the strongest railways in the crypto space and the most secure and the most programmable plastic steam engine. We needed both. We need the programmability and the security, and that's actually what RSK is. And why is RSK unique? For multiple reasons. So one of them is the first Bitcoin sidechain in production that ever existed. That means that RSK uses Bitcoin as native currency. So when you execute smart contracts on RSK, you pay the gas in smart Bitcoin, which has a one-to-one peg to Bitcoin. So this aligns RSK with the economic incentives of the whole Bitcoin community. If RSK is successful, every Bitcoiner will be successful because Bitcoin price will go up. So that it's something that makes RSK quite unique. But also, we decided that the consensus mechanism of RSK was also going to leverage on Bitcoin proof of work and Bitcoin security. So are actually the ASIC Bitcoin miners who build the blocks and secure the RSK network. And as of today, we have more than 50% of total Bitcoin miners merge mining RSK. So that makes RSK one of the most secure platforms in the world and creates this positive feedback loop with the miners, where if RSK is successful, then Bitcoin miners receive more money, and that makes Bitcoin more secure.
Yeah, so I've heard about that. That's merged mining, you guys call it. Is there, like, if a Bitcoin miner wants to also secure RSK, do they have to, is there an integration they do to add on to that? Like it's, and it's the same energy output basically, but you get a twofer. It's a 2-for-1 deal.
Exactly. And merge mining is a technology that already existed. So we kind of cherry pick the best technologies and put them together with the right economic incentives. The merge mining on RSK is done at the mining pool level. So when miners connect to a mining pool, they already are merge mining RSK if that mining pool is connected to RSK. And basically what the mining pool does is it receives a lot of solutions that are not valid for a Bitcoin block, but might be valid for an RSK block, because RSK has blocks every 30 seconds. So the difficulty is significantly lower than Bitcoin one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how miners can benefit and get extra money from the RSK fees, but without sacrificing any loss in the efficiency of the Bitcoin mining. And something else that makes RSK unique is that we understood that there is an amazing community of developers and solutions being built on top of Solidity smart contracts. And we thought that these developers and projects such as Chainlink are so important to this, open financial system of the future that we dream, that these projects need to have options and not be subject to the lack or success of the underlying infrastructure. So every project should be blockchain agnostic and just choose the infrastructure that can provide the highest level of security at the lowest cost. So we decided from day one that we wanted to be 100% compatible with Ethereum. So any project that is building their solution on Ethereum or Ethereum Classic can also make that solution available on RSK and get closer to the whole Bitcoin community of users. So that also makes RSK quite unique.
Yeah, and it's using Solidity. So it's programming language and tooling that developers are already familiar with.
Truffle, everything.
That's fantastic. But then it's secured on the Bitcoin blockchain. That's really interesting. For a little primer, so can you talk a little bit about the difference between, we hear the term layer 2 a lot for scalability. You guys are a side chain. There's some similarities between the layer 2 and a side chain. Do you mind talking just briefly, like how can we conceive of those for?
Absolutely. So we consider RSK as a Bitcoin layer 2 technology, right? Because it takes the native currency, is linked to Bitcoin security, but enables a whole new wide range of new functionality. As I was saying before, our dream as the RSK community is to build a financial system that is open and available to everyone, that can provide financial services that are so inexpensive that can serve billions of users that are currently excluded from the system. So this is what RSK and the programmability of smart contracts enable on top of Bitcoin. Because, Bitcoin plays a unique role that no other cryptocurrency can play in the world, which is a decentralized, neutral, secure store of value. And that will keep the world together despite all the problems that we are seeing in the legacy, financial system. But in order to serve those in need, underserved in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, in India, we need to have, a system that is fully automated, that can allow us to serve billions of users without any human intervention. And for that, you need Turing-complete smart contracts. Mm-hmm. So that's why we call RSK a second layer on top of Bitcoin. And then we have the RIF services, so RSK infrastructure framework services with the RIF token, that this is what we call a layer 3, because these are ERC20 tokens issued on RSK that pay Bitcoin miners fees every time they transact. So the RIF services is what we call a layer 3 on top of Bitcoin. And that includes, for instance, the Lumino network, which is a payment channel that enables thousands of transactions at almost zero cost, which is the dream that we expect for users in Venezuela, for instance, which is actually one of the key markets that we are trying to serve now, because it's very close to our community and very close to our hearts. And that's where blockchain technology is needed the most now. It's not in Michigan, in the US, in Europe. In Venezuela, the country is going through a major crisis where the economy is dollarized, but there are no dollars. So if you're a poor family and you need a few $1 notes to buy food, you need to pay 20% fee in order to get the $1 note bills. So there's this project built on RSK called Money on Chain that created the first stable coin with collateral in Bitcoin. So as opposed to other centralized stable coins that use the US dollar or DAI, which uses Ether, Money on Chain uses the Bitcoin as the collateral for the stable coin. And it's getting a lot of traction in Argentina. So families and people are using it to protect themselves from inflation and from capital controls. And the same thing is happening in Venezuela.
Man, I've talked to some folks from Latin America, and they grew up just around the dinner conversation about the inflation rate. Oh, inflation's going crazy today. We need to go spend our bolivars or whatever it happens. We need to go spend them today because they're not going to be worth as much tomorrow. And, it's such a really interesting sort of case study in financial literacy and adoption and, macroeconomics that anybody can really understand. This is not going to be worth what it is today, what it is tomorrow. So let's spend it. And then you introduce stable currencies and they seem like advanced financial applications, but collateralized financial applications. And it just makes sense to people like, oh, I can keep it here. It'll stay stable. So the stable coin and these sort of instruments, those are great examples of DeFi on RSK. What other sorts of things are you guys thinking with RSK and what's being built on there? Can you talk a little bit more about other sort of DeFi things that are happening?
Yes, absolutely. And we like to say that Bitcoin is the most important DeFi technology that ever existed, because sometimes we use the DeFi definition when we're talking about hype and just complex smart contracts to maximize returns that really no one knows where they're coming from. To me and to us, the most revolutionary part of DeFi is the decentralized part. And why it's so important that these technologies are decentralized? It's because what we're trying to do here is to serve billions of users that don't have a proper ID, that live in countries where someone has decided that they are financially blocked or excluded from the world. And they are like a collateral damage for the legacy system. No one cares about poor people in Venezuela. No one cares about poor people in India or Africa. In order to serve those users, in order to build a more equal and fair society, we need to break some rules to enable a poor person with no ID in India to get a microloan and be able to self-employ herself or himself. So this is what I find revolutionary about DeFi. And this is really our approach. That's why Sergio, our chief scientist and co-founder, has been thinking on scalability of RSK many, many years ago, even before the blockchain gets bloated. So he was security auditor of the Bitcoin Foundation in the US, and he did a security audit for Ethereum. So he understood the limitations that blockchains and Ethereum could have. And we've been working on this for many years. As I was telling you before, for us, DeFi, it's how to serve Venezuelans and how to let Argentine families and families in India or in Nigeria or in Lebanon to protect themselves. Also, for us, DeFi, it's very important in a sense of interoperability. So something that we appreciate and value from Bitcoin is its anti-fragility. We are touching so many interests that don't want the world to change, don't want the financial system to be more open and to be more fair, that we need to make sure that the networks that we're building are interconnected, and that makes the whole ecosystem anti-fragile. So Chainlink, it's actually one great example because the link token is now available on RSK as an R-Link, and the oracles on Chainlink are also available for projects on RSK. Also, MakerDAO made the DAI as available on RSK through the RSK Ethereum bridge. And we really promote, we've been helping Ethereum Classic also with technology that we built for RSK, offering them the possibility when they were having the 51% attacks. And that's why we love projects such as Money on Chain or Sovereign, which made a lending and swaps solution on top of RSK. Because what we envision as the dream or the purpose why we're building all this, it's building a financial system not for poor people, but just so low cost and available to everyone and open source and open to everyone that can be really used by the 7 billion users around the world. So this is kind of our approach to DeFi, a little bit less on the hype and on the short term, but looking at the technology that is being built behind the hype, which we believe can be really revolutionary and help us create a new world. Because probably, Andy, you share this with me, the legacy system is collapsing in front of our eyes. Sometimes I like to say that we Argentines or Venezuelans, we come from the future. We know how a collapsing fiat financial system looks like. And this is very sad because it's not that we've had a good time having our financial systems, our governments deficits collapsing and our currencies being completely devalued by the overprinting of it. But this is something that we kept saying for the last 7 years. And now in the last 12 months, the US has printed around 40% of their total money supply. So we know what's happening. And if I were you or everyone in the crypto community, I would look at what's happening in Argentina and Venezuela, because in my opinion, this is what's happening. And this is what's going to affect every single one of us in the rest of the world in the near future. And we can learn on the solutions that Bitcoiners and just average users are using from crypto and from blockchain around the world, but especially in Argentina and Venezuela, to protect themselves from the collapse of the fiat system.
Yeah, I like to think about decentralization. It's not decentralization for the sake of decentralization. It's that decentralization gives you security. Like it brings that level of confidence into a system that lets you build, lets you expand, lets you make it more accessible to more people. So it's not just that it's access. We can make cheap access in centralized systems if somebody put out the money. And we can make highly secure systems, but we can mix those things together and create systems around the world, maybe for everybody that accomplish this. Fantastic. Thanks for bringing up Chainlink. We are very happy that we've are integrated onto RSK natively and that projects can use us. Can you talk a little bit about how our decentralized or the Chainlink decentralized oracles are used and how that network works?
Yes. So we understood that in order to serve these billions of users, we need programmability and we need automation. So what we call reef gateways, which are these components that interact between the real world and the smart contracts, are a key component for the automation of the whole system. So when we built the RSK infrastructure framework, gateways were always a key component. And that's why we were so excited when we started the conversations with the Chainlink community and we put the oracles available in RSK. Because in order to serve these users, we need to have decentralized oracles. We need to know what's happening in the real world, so we don't need human manual interaction in order to build this bank of the future. We also are working on triggers, which are kind of the same tool, but on the other direction. So to get information from smart contracts and communicate to the users. And also as part of Reef Gateways, we'll have the schedulers, which give us information about the pass of time. So the oracles are a key component and can also be the weakest link. So if you have a fully decentralized solution, but a centralized oracle, then the whole system can be hacked by hacking the oracle. So there are several providers of oracles in the space, but we believe that what Chainlink has created, being the most mature and broadly used decentralized network of oracles, it's key for the solutions that we're trying to see built on RSK. So the decentralization of the oracles builds on top of this anti-fragility that we mentioned before, uh, which is just not important for the sake of it. It's just important because we want to serve billions of users that can be able to transact at extremely low cost because they cannot afford higher fees. This is also something that we take very seriously, the scalability. Uh, and we're kind of sad to see that now Venezuelans cannot use DAI on Ethereum anymore. They're trying to figure out ways how to protect their savings, but without spending all their money in fees. So we always been very cautious on the scalability and trying to figure out how to make the RSK use cases on the second layer and the third layer through Lumino as cheap as possible. And automation is a key part. So the decentralized oracles of the Chainlink community and network are extremely important. We have them already available on the testnet, and I think towards the end of the month we're going to have the major launch of the oracles in the mainnet. We have the Cubist team, which is part of the RSK community and the Chainlink community too, working very hard on this. So I would like to send my regards to Horacio and the whole team working on this. And we're so excited and happy to see this level of collaboration with a clear objective in mind. No, it's just not DeFi because it's cool, because of the hype. It's because we're trying to build a better world. And if it is not us, there are not many other people interested in building a future that is brighter than what we had in the past. So yeah, we're super excited to see this collaboration between Chainlink and RSK.
We hear a lot about for Chainlink security and quality data, but you bring up this idea of automation. And automation as anti-fragility is, I think, a really key component of this space. And I think of it as automation lets you set it and forget it, and it works because the consensus of whatever RSK, the network, takes care of things, and the smart contract runs regardless of whether or not there's a person there approving. So to have these automated systems makes it anti-fragile. It helps strengthen those things. So you got to have these good consensus mechanisms relying on the Bitcoin security, good data relying on Chainlink, and things like that. I think that automation component is really interesting. And I think people would be surprised at how much of DeFi that they see is automated. It just runs on smart contracts naturally. So that's a fantastic point that I think we need to talk about a little bit more. We have a couple of questions from YouTube. Guys, if you're watching, feel free to drop more in the chat. I will be monitoring that and coming back to that soon. So before we do that, I want to ask, so you touched a little bit about what's next on the product roadmap for RSK and Chainlink oracles. Do you want to talk about other things that are coming for RSK in your ecosystem, things that you're excited about? Chainlink as well, if that's part of it, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I would like to separate the roadmap in two parts. So we have the second layer, the RSK layer, and then we have the Reef layer, or the third layer, because there are a lot of news on both sides. So on the RSK layer, there is a major network upgrade coming soon towards the end of this month. It's called Iris. And the main purpose of the Iris improvements is to improve security. So we are strengthening the two-way peg between RSK and Bitcoin. We are making it just way easier to use from a UX standpoint. So the user experience is going to be much easier for users to take their Bitcoins and move them into smart Bitcoin and back and forth. We also deployed what we call HSM 2.0, so hardware security modules that the peg notaries use to manage this peg, which are basically impossible to be violated. So this is a super important component. This will enable a higher amount of Bitcoin in the two-way peg. So this is a potential higher demand for Bitcoin and great news for the Bitcoin ecosystem. It also has a garbage collection because, as I told you before, you know that the size of the blockchain is key to define the decentralization, because the larger the blockchain size, the lower the full nodes number. So the garbage collector will reduce the size of the blockchain, which is very important as well. There are going to be improvements in the bridge that we mentioned, the bridge that Chainlink used to move Link to R-Link back and forth, and same thing with MakerDAO. So the bridge is going to be easier to use and even more secure. And something very important for the community of developers that are working or listening to us today is the integration with Gitcoin. So we're going to launch a very broad number of grants to the whole developer community to help us build different parts of RSK. So stay tuned and follow the RSK Gitcoin integration, because there are going to be great rewards and grants for all of you willing to help us build this. And as you said before, Andy, is fully compatible with MetaMask Truffle and all the toolkit. Some of these tools are already available on other blockchains, so it's just very easy to pour them over. But also we have a lot of news on the RSK infrastructure framework layer. What we're trying to do with Reef, it's now that we have 50% of Bitcoin merge mining and a smart contract platform secured by Bitcoin, now we are dreaming higher. We want this Internet of Value to help us fix what's still wrong on the traditional Internet of Information, right? And we see it now with COVID more clear than ever before. No surveillance, the user being the product, backdoors everywhere, firewalls, not allowing users from any part of the world just interact with the different parts of the internet. So with Reef, what we wanted to try is to build, with the security that we have from RSK, this new component to have decentralized storage. So we have Reef storage integrated with IPFS and Swarm. We have Reef communications that basically enable a network of nodes to relay communications and chats, so we can have a decentralized WhatsApp or decentralized Telegram. We have a decentralized ID, and one of the things that we're launching is the R login, which enables users to protect their own reputation, because in the near future, your online reputation will be worth more than your passport or your ID number, especially if you are from Africa or Latin America. And right now, you might be working for a platform for 5 years or using an e-commerce and get deplatformed from one day to the other. It happened to Trump, no? The most powerful guy in the world got deplatformed. And that could happen to the Argentine president tomorrow if the US wants to do a coup on Argentina. So with all these components, the decentralized identity part of Reef, the decentralized communications, the decentralized storage, and the decentralized marketplace, including the decentralized gateways where Chainlink is part of, it will let us dream with fully decentralized sharing economies and fully decentralized social networks, where the content is created and shared by the users, and the rules are written in a smart contract that could be audited by anyone, and no one can deplatform you or tell you, whether you can participate or be censored. So these are some of the other very important things that are coming on the Reef side that we're very excited about, and hopefully will enable us to take everything that we've learned from Satoshi and all the bright minds that have been working on Bitcoin, Ethereum, smart contracts, and the blockchain community as a whole, to help us build an internet fully decentralized, not governed by politicians or corporations, as we think the internet should have been in the first place. No, just neutral, available to everyone, and protecting the sovereignty of the users. So that's some of the things that are coming in the near future.
There's a really a great question in the chat I want to get to because it ties into kind of what you're talking about. And I want to propose this as a philosophical question to you. You're an economist. I love the way to hear you think about this. So someone asks, can decentralization accomplish stability in the financial system, in the existing financial system? And if so, why? And so I'm going to flip that a little and ask you, there's kind of a couple paths. Is building this, alternative rail going to have an impact fixing the existing system, or do we just need to build it all on our own and make the pathway for people to leave there and come over? Is give people an option, or is it going to be reciprocal in some way? Do you have thoughts around that?
Well, yeah. Do we have 3 more hours to talk about this?
Yeah, right. That's such a fun question.
It's awesome. Congratulations to whoever asked the question. So a few thoughts on this. First of all, stability we love stability, but I don't know. I mean, we should ask ourselves, what's the source of instability first? So I can tell you, as an Argentine, that having politicians with the ability of changing the supply of money and printing money out of thin air to cover their own incapabilities to manage and run a government with a stable budget, it's just prolonging the instability forever and actually multiplying in the future. So we live in a world now that is on the brink of collapse. And it's been like this since 2008. So I don't know whether DeFi or decentralization will bring stability at the beginning. What I really like is that ultimately decentralization will take away from politicians the ability to control the money supply. And this is just noise. They're not adding value. When people say that the world problems can be solved by printing money, no, it's just the politicians are all the time looking for votes, and they have such a short sight that it's too tempting for them to just keep printing as they are doing. So it might sound a little bit depressing, but I believe that before reaching a new level of stability, there's going to be a lot of instability that needs to happen, because we are in the brink of the fall of the modern Roman Empire. Mm. Right? And that's not going to be a stable process. Now, maintaining the current system, I think, could be even worse. I mean, maybe not if you live in the US or if you live in Europe, but if you live in Africa, you understand that the current system is broken, right? If an UFO would come and see us on Earth with half of the population poor and starving, so these guys didn't solve this properly. So we need to fix this system that has been broken since 1971, when we moved to this fiat system. And something that I heard the other day is that fiat is not a feature of the system. Fiat is a bug, right? When the politicians were not able to support their government spending and their ego to start wars around the world and get this economic expansion and 800 military bases around the world, they needed to print money out of thin air and debase every single dollar that every central bank or individual has on their mattress. So first of all, we need to take that away from the politicians and recover our sovereignty as internet users and just random citizens of this planet of our money. And probably what we're seeing, it's a very stressful process, in the same way that we separated government from religion, which was difficult, but it was very important. I believe we're going through a process where we're going to see a separation between government and money. Once that happens, which might take a couple of decades, and it's going to be very challenging. That's why we need our solutions to be decentralized, so they cannot be shut down. Then I believe we're going to see a massive era of prosperity around the globe. And hopefully that new era will be more fair and equal with opportunities to everyone. Because right now, if you are born in Latin America, and or if you're born in Africa or in India, chances are that you won't be able to make a decent living because the initial conditions are built in such a way that the winners keep on being the winners in the future. So back to the question, I don't think we're going to see stability in the short term. I think it's more because of the problems that the current system or the legacy system has created than the disruption of DeFi or decentralized finance. And I see Bitcoin and decentralized finance as a safety net that will keep humanity together. So when the SWIFT system is broken, when the US keeps on adding penalties to every single other economy that they consider an adversary, when the Chinese don't trust the Americans and the internet or the financial system gets broken into two, that's when we're going to realize how powerful DeFi and Bitcoin were. Because no matter who wants to shut you down or shut the economy or the financial system down, we're always going to have these tools that are available to everyone to use. And that's where we're going to see the real value of DeFi, keeping humanity together for the future. So
yeah,
not in the
I
short
see
term,
another,
but in the long run, yeah.
Absolutely. I see another comment in the chat that kind of gets at this. It's, you guys are working so hard on infrastructure, go for it. That's really what it feels like. Like we've got to build the rails so that when we need real mass adoption, it's ready. It's ready to bring people on, and there are barriers to that, but people like you are building that. Sometimes on crypto Twitter, you see Ethereum and Bitcoin people chatting, but really when you get down to developers, people who are engineering and building these systems, they're building it to be interoperable and reach more people and be fair and decentralized systems. Gabriel, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you and connecting to you and meeting you. This is my first time meeting you. Where can the people follow you and find more information about RSK and your projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is rsk.co. The RIF website is rifos.org. You can follow us on Twitter as RSK Smart. My Twitter is Gabriel Kurman. And just as a final message to all the developers that are listening to us today, just come on board. We need everyone to help us build this dream. As you said, we're building the infrastructure, but the real solutions that will change people's lives are coming from the money on chains, the sovereign, the Chainlinks, and all these amazing projects that are creating this puzzle that we need to complete in order to offer the world a sovereign, decentralized, anti-fragile financial system, hopefully before the old one breaks apart completely. So let's keep on building together to build a better world.
Yeah, I want to echo that idea about developers contributing. It's not just hardcore blockchain engineers anymore. We need front-end developers. We need React developers who are helping build applications so that people understand it. We need designers, people who understand UX. We need a lot more these days. The industry is growing so fast, as your project is testament to, as is Chainlink growing. So thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to the audience for asking fantastic questions, and we'll see you again sometime.